Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
Hello to anyone who's listening asynchronously via the Temple Beth Am podcast. We are here in chapter 12. Last week we read the Pasuk 21 of chapter 12, which is the beginning of the fifth Aliyah. You may want to pull up Safari if you have it in your app, because Rashi's not in here. We didn't have a chance to look at the Rashi. I'm going to read the verse again, and then we'll assign someone to read the Rashi and get going. So, as we said last week, we've moved from instructions about how the night's going to go to the night actually going. We're now back to kind of in real time narrative as opposed to lead up. Vayikra Moshe lechol ziknei Yisrael. Moses called to all the elders of Israel. Vayomer alehem, and he said to them, Mishchu ukechu. If you wanted to be very precise, pull and take. Pull and take. Lachem, for you. Tzon lemishpachotechem, a sheep for your families. V'shachatu, and slaughter hapasach, the paschal offering. Okay, and I think we already predicted last week. There's something about the here's Rachel. There's something about the mishchu ukechu, the double verb, that is probably going to be the kind of thing that awakens Rashi's curiosity. So before we look at Rashi, anybody want to say anything just on the construction of the verse itself? Because we didn't have much time to do that last week. Larry, let's give Larry a microphone.
The previous Aliyah was God talking to Moses. This entire Aliyah is not, I'm simply saying this Aliyah is not really real-time what happened. It's God, Moses turns around, having gotten the instructions from God, Moses turns around and is now telling the people. Nothing's happened until the very end of this Aliyah, when it then says that, and then people then did what he said. So it's still all instructions.
Right. We've moved from God's instructions to Moses conveying those instructions to the people. You're right.
And then
the Vayikra Moshe lechol ziknei Yisrael was a shift in plot, was a new scene.
And then if you go to the next Aliyah, that's when action happens.
Correct. Good. Barry? Now it's good. Hold on 1 second, Barry. All right, Elon, try one more time.
Can I make a comment about the Tigers? Take it easy on,
now we can hear you.
or should I take it easy on Larry?
Oh, yeah.
All right, testing.
Okay, thanks, Hector. All right, good.
So in the construction here, we have two words, mishchu and uchu. But when God gave the command to Moshe in 12:3, it's what vayichu lachem, just taking. There's not a drawing, there's just taking. That's in 12:3.
Right, and Rashi is going to pay attention to that. There's going to be several callbacks to that verse. What's the meaning and the significance of the second verb having to do with what the Israelites do with this zone? What is the moshech in addition to the kach? Joanna.
I'm wondering if the vav is functioning as a connector or a separator. Are there two actions that everyone has to do? You have to mashchu and then chu something? Or is it like, oh, there's a choice of how to do this? Because vav can sometimes be translated as or. You can mashchu or you can chu.
Good. So you're on Rashi's wavelength. If you were the answerer, how would you weigh in? If you had to weigh in on, is it a vav of an and or a vav and an or? Is it saying that each person has an obligation to moshech and kach, or it's split? What would you guess? Not that there's a right answer. What would you weigh in on?
I'm going to guess the second, the or, just because like you have to take a goat and then shecht it. Like, I don't know how many actions can be involved in taking the goat. Like, what else is it to do there? So there's two different ways of, off the top of my head, like, are you buying a goat? Or are you just finding one out in the wild? Like,
Good. So that comment makes me think we should read Everett Fox's translation of the verse before Rashi's, because they're going to read that very question two different ways. So I'm going to share Everett Fox's translation. It's on the screen now. So Moshe had all the elders of Israel called, which is an interesting way of translating. I think this is Everett Fox. Is it Everett Fox? Yeah. Had them all called. I don't know why he renders that had them all called from and he called, but he's got to have a reason. And said to them, pick out, comma, take yourselves a sheep for your clans. So he's weighing in on the side that Joanna was suggesting of every person should do these two things. Pick one out and then bring it as a sacrifice, as if each verb applies to both person. Okay?
Alter agrees exactly.
Alter agrees? What's his translation?
Draw out and take yourselves.
Now say it so everyone hear it.
Alter says, draw out and take yourselves.
And what does Ari Kaplan say?
The Kaplan says, he says, gather the people. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to read the whole verse because it's interesting. Moses summoned the elders of Israel and said unto them, gather, brackets, the people, and get yourselves sheep for your families.
He's applying the mishchu to the people and the kachu to the sheep. That's very different.
And he cites Radak for that.
Oh, what did Radak know? He was French. Interesting. I've never read that verse that way. That the two verbs are referencing two entirely different parts of the obligation. Mishchu, pull together a group of people, ukachu, and then take the sacrifice. Interesting. So Rashi's going to read it differently than Everett Fox does and different than Kaplan. Joanna, is your hand up again or still?
Again.
Yeah.
I wanted to offer a thought on Fox's reading. When we started chapter 12, Hashem said to Moshe and Aharon, now we're at a point where it seems to be only Moshe is there, and he hasn't gone anywhere. So how do the elders get to him? I wonder if there's a read here that Aaron left to go get the elders.
And that's why it's had them called. Right? Had to do something to gather them. He couldn't just do it on his own. Interesting. Good. It still that resolves it in context. It doesn't really resolve it to me, to my untrained mind, in the Hebrew. It's hard to make sense of that in Vayikra Moshe Lechol Zignei Israel. There's no suggestion in the Hebrew of the elders being passively called, but translation is hard, as we discussed. Sue.
Agreed, and also interesting from Fox, who tries to be so precise in translating a word the same every time.
Well, I would say that Fox balances the precision of wanting to be every word to be right every time and the English sentence to make sense as a good English sentence, given what's happening in the story. And it's hard. It's really hard to do both simultaneously. Sue?
I think it makes perfect sense. In so many other situations, it's Vayikra Moshe b'nei Israel v'amar lebnei Israel or something like that. But this is by saying El Ziknei Israel, we're definitely putting in the heads of the family to go out and get the sheep, and it's not some kind of a sheep grabbing free for all. Everybody go. It's organize yourselves, which I think is kind of important. They're trying to, array this properly.
Yeah. So the people who know what they're doing are doing it. Joel, you're shaking your head. Is that was that an intentional shaking of the head? I don't want to call you out, but I just called you out. What's on your mind?
I mean, if that was the case, mashach is a weird word to use.
Yeah.
Because mashach is a word of taking ownership.
Pulling, attracting, yeah.
Lehitaseh for something is, to gather. So
you're saying that R.A. Kaplan's read of Mishchu being referencing the people is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Rashi agrees with that. We'll get there in a second. Rick and then Barry.
So this is the Torah reading for the first day of Pesach.
Yep.
And so you got 5 verbs here. So you got the 5 cups of wine.
But you have 4 cups of wine.
Well, the 5th one for Elijah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Barry, and then we'll read Rashi.
I think it has to do with.
Joey, you can close that door.
It has to do with possession. It's a process of taking possession. Find, get, and possess.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways of figuring out what those verbs can apply to. Let's jump into Rashi. Let's see. Carol, are you at a place where you can read? Going once?
Yes, sorry. I'm having a problem getting my camera to work, so I'm distracted trying to find drivers. Okay, what are we on the Rashi?
We're on the Rashi on Mishchu.
Mishu, mi sheyesh lo tzon, yim shoch mishalo. So whoever has a sheep will take from his own.
Okay.
Ukhu, mi she'en lo yikach min hashuk. And whoever does not have one will take it or buy it from the market.
Good, right. So I love that you said take it and buy it, because Rashi in Hebrew is reading take to mean buy. He's reading kach, which we normally translate as the verb to take, lakach, as to take as in to acquire. And the super commentaries on Rashi, and they could have pointed to several different places, point to a verse where it seems yet more obvious that the verb lakach, which sometimes drops the lamed, means to acquire and possess, as opposed to just take physically. And I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so you might know this because it's sung. This is part of Eshet Chayil, right? This is chapter 31, the end of the book of Mishlei. And one of the things that we praise a woman of valor for is, in verse 16, Zama masadeh vatikachehu mi pricha penatakarem. Zama masadeh, she ascertains, she estimates the value of, she sets her mind on a field, vatikachehu, and she kachs it. It doesn't mean she takes her hands and pulls a field to her. It means she becomes the owner of it. She's a shrewd businesswoman, and she sees an investment property, and she goes and she cocks it, meaning she buys it, she acquires it, okay? So it's that sense of kach, that, according to Rashi, is what's happening in the verse. And going back to what Joanna said, it's the former. I think it was the former, not the latter, the two options. These are two different situations. If you got a sheep, moshechet, pull it towards you. If you don't have a sheep, it's almost as if it's saying this is not an exemption from fulfilling this obligation. You got to go buy one. You got to go acquire one. Mishchu or kachu. Once you kachu it, then of course you're going to moshech it, because you've got to pull it towards you in order to slaughter it.
I thought it was a different song.
Here we go.
No
one can hear you. I don't know if that's a good thing.
It sounds like Tzur Mishalom.
Tzur Mishalom. Yeah. Okay, so which of these is the right way of reading the verse? Who knows? But it's an interesting way of resolving the redundancy of the verb and resolving the question as to what the vav is doing. And the vav is really like an or. Diane, has your hand up?
Yeah. So it seems like Rashi's comment is interposing. When he talks about the shuk, I mean, we don't have this image of them being out in the desert and having any kind of a shuk, whether they did or not. You would think it would be more like, go buy one from your neighbor.
Yeah.
But that there's some kind of sheep selling going on. Maybe there was, but it almost feels like Rashi is imagining what happens in France in the 10th century, whatever.
It's a great comment. Yeah, I think you're right. It seems like Rashi is simultaneously commenting on the night of Exodus and the ongoing obligation, probably not for 11th century France, but when the temple stood and Korban Pesach was still operative, that this is, he's like talking about it both as the story and the halacha for what you should do if you're in Judea in the year 20. Yeah, very good comment. I had not picked up on that. Because I think you're right. I think Rashi would say, no, of course there wasn't a shuk in the desert, but this chapter, as we've discussed, is going back and forth between describing what happened that night and describing how what happened that night became an obligation for generations, right? Look back at, how far back did we get the notion of generations in this chapter? So go back to verse 17, and as God is giving the instructions, Ushmartem et hamitzvot, matzot, look what I did there, protect or observe the matzot, because I will have brought them out on that night. Ushmartem et hayom hazeh, you should guard that day, lidorotechem chukat olam, for your generations ongoing. And then we got back in the story, and we're going to go soon into what what should happen after that. And Rashi may be either consciously or unconsciously conflating them. Rick.
Question: does Onkelos help with anything? It's eat nagihu, gidu, and vesivu. I don't know what those mean.
Yeah, eat nagidu is from the root nagad, neged, which means it can mean both against, but it can also mean adjacent to, like an ezer kenegdo, in how God created a partner for man. It's sometimes understood as like someone to healthily push against the person, but it really means like the one adjacent to you, the one next to you. So why it's in the hitpa'el, the Aramaic version of hitpa'el, I don't know, to kind of like make that sheep get close to you, something like that. Sibu seems to be related to kulano misubin, right? We are all reclining on the night of Pesach, something about being close in. So it seems, although I'm not 100% precise on this, I'd have to look at the commentaries or the attempts to translate Onkelos into English. It seems that he is rendering both words having to do with getting that sheep close to you. And he certainly does not use any language that suggests purchase or acquisition. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the Rashi. Carol, you were up.
Lemishpechotechem se leveit avot.
Okay, and those three words are a quote from the very verse that Barry sent us back to a few seconds ago. So let's actually turn back to it. Look at verse 3 of chapter 12. And basically Rashi's saying, if you had a question about what a phrase meant in verse 3, this resolves it, or it's said clearer in our verse than in verse 3. In verse 3 of chapter 12, Dabru el kol adat Yisrael, God says to Moses and Aaron, speak to the entire congregation of Israel, lemor, saying this, be'asor lachodesh, on the 10th of the month, hazeh, this month, v'yikchu, same verb, they will take for them. And I don't remember if when we read that verse many moons ago, we discussed the possibility of the v'yikchu there, meaning not just to take, but to acquire. I don't remember if we discussed it. I don't think does Rashi say anything about that there? Yeah, no, Rashi does not really talk about the vayikhu there. Okay, but they shall take for them ish se leveit avot se labayit. It was a different kind of redundancy, right? Each person should take for them se leveit avot, a sheep for, if you want to translate it literally, for the house of the fathers, se labayit, or a house for the a sheep for the house. And we're not going to go all the way back into the conversation we had about that phrase, but that was another phrase we're trying to figure out. Is that two different situations? Is that just two ways of saying the same thing? What is a beit avot? In modern Hebrew, beit avot is an old age home. It doesn't mean that here. Rashi says, in our verse, it's much more obvious, right? Lim mishbechotechem, your families. By the way, biblical mishpacha does not necessarily mean nuclear family. It doesn't mean parents and children. It means like clan, right? But it's still more clear than se levet avot. So he quotes se levet avot not to clarify what mishpachotechem means, but to, after the fact, clarify what se levet avot means. You, reader, know what mishpachotechem means, and this makes it even more clear what God was talking about in verse 3. Okay? A sheep per household. Barry?
About something you suggested a moment ago about the bringing to yourselves. I forget who was alluding to that, where you were sourcing that, but in the first approach, it's just take for the household. But here, it's like bringing close to you, because this slaughter is something. It's evoking of you. You are involved in this. It's not just slaughtering the lamb. It's something that you're bringing to yourself to slaughter.
Yes, I mean, every family had to be directly involved in this korban. Norm?
Thank you. I think there's an implication here that one of these two verbs, one of these two mitzvahs, we still do. We obviously do not go and select a lamb or acquire a lamb and slaughter it as a sacrifice, but we do gather our clans and create a group to share the opening Passover meals.
Yeah. In that sense, Aryeh Kaplan's odd translation of mishchu, referring to the people, is evocative of what Pesach means to us. I don't know if it's accurate translation, but it's definitely evocative. Yeah. Nice comment, Norm. Thank you. Larry?
My question is, do we have any sense of the time frame at the beginning of the chapter? When God was giving all these instructions to Moses, it was presumably before the 10th of the month. So maybe in 21, and this is, I think, what Alter says. Is it Alter? Yeah. Maybe what he's saying, go now. This is it. So this happens, verse 21 happens on is it the eve of the 10th, or is it 10th, whatever it is? What's the date that he says at the beginning of the chapter?
Beginning of the chapter, it's to be done on the 10th.
Right. So then this is the 10th. And what Alter says is the precise nuance of the verb, of the first of these two verbs, draw out and take, it has been proposed that draw, mashach, preceding other verb, must have the idiomatic force of hasten, perform urgently. Now's the time. He hasn't told them until then, and he's starting the race.
I'm trying to think if any of the verses in between have suggested a passage of time where it all seems like one moment. Are you suggesting, Larry, that before our verse, before the fifth Aliyah, we've moved from the very beginning of the month to the 10th of the month?
Exactly. This is verse 21 is taking place on the 10th, and that's why he's telling them, do it now.
Interesting. I think that if that's a dominant possibility, it might say something about why Chazal started an Aliyah here, because they really saw it as a scene that is taking place at a different moment in time than the previous one.
He certainly doesn't say, Moses certainly doesn't say, on the 10th, take a sheep.
Yeah.
He says, he summons them and he says, go out and pick go out and
nice. Yeah.
Well, give Alter credit for that one.
Yeah.
But they haven't done it yet.
Right. They're giving the instructions. Okay, that's all the Rashis on 21. Joanna has raised her hand. Yes.
Just to keep playing with that theme, then the next Aliyah division is marks the passage of time also, because Shishi starts Vayihi b'chatzi halayla. So the fifth Aliyah is on the 10th, and the sixth Aliyah we're at Pesach.
That's great. That is so. Those two comments back to back are really helpful in understanding the sweep and the pace of this chapter. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go to verse 22. Whom have we not heard from today? We heard Elon, but not substantively. So Elon, now not just as a token assurance that the audio is working, but as a speaker of Torah, please read verse 22.
Great. Ukachtem agudat azov ut valtem badam asher basaf vehigatem el mashkof ve'el shtei hamizuzot mi'adam asher basaf va'atem lo tetzu ish mipachat beito ad boker.
Good. There are a lot of words in this verse that may be known from other contexts, just in terms of how to deal with the vocabulary. So go through it and see what you can do.
Okay, I'm stumped on the third word already. And you shall take a bunch of, no idea what azov is.
You don't like zatar, Elon? What do you put on your hummus and your round bagels that you get in the old city? Ezov is
Right.
hyssop, which is zatar. Okay.
If I showed you a hyssop, just a plain hyssop, would you recognize it?
Would I recognize a hyssop?
Yes.
Depends. If it was in a little bag that was sold to me by an Arab baker at the corner of Salah ad-Din Street, then yes, I would recognize it. It's are we 100% sure? No, but most people connect ezov to hyssop, and the Arabic is zatar. It's a spice. Okay. Utvaltem tevila.
You should dip it in the blood.
Elon, hold on 1 second. What'd you say, Sue?
It looks like lavender.
Looks like meaning physically or?
Yeah.
Okay. Oregano? Really?
But no, zatar is a seasoning taste.
Okay,
Is it good on pizza?
Hold on, folks. We can only talk in the room in front of the mic because it's very frustrating for those who are not in the Zoom. So say that again,
Okay,
Dan.
I think that zatar is in the oregano family. And there's a difference between the actual herb and the spice mixture. Because there's a spice mixture that's got sesame seeds in it. And
Of the zatar, you mean?
Of zatar.
Correct.
When you buy zatar, it's a
Correct.
mix. It's not even gluten-free. And yeah, but I think the plant itself, I think, is similar to oregano.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is what it looks like according to Google.
What is? Yeah. Sue picked that up also. Yeah. So we'll go back to that in a second. Utvaltem, the root is tovel. You might know that from mikvah. To immerse in a mikvah is tevilah. So you shall immerse it. What's that? Exactly. So it's part of the Seder night also. Shebachol halot ein anu matbilin. We do not dip our foods in the liquid even once, and tonight we do it twice.
And you shall dip it in blood.
So you shall dip it. Keep going, Elon.
Yeah, in blood. Asher basaf. What is basaf?
Asaf, we'll look at Rashi's answer also, but it's some kind of a basin. The collecting basin for the blood from the slaughtered animal. Okay, so so take this bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood which is in the basin.
And you shall touch them to the lintel and to the two doorposts from the blood that was in the basin, and you shall go out.
You shall not go out.
You shall not go out. Every man and his family from their home until the morning.
Great. So again, just interesting vocabulary words in the verse. We've got ezov, we've got aguda, which we're going to talk about in a second. We've got tovel, which means to immerse, and as Joel points out, is also ends up being significant in the observance of Pesach. We've got saf as a basin. Higatem, shechianu v'kiyamanu behigiyanu. To lahagia means to arrive, and in the Hebrew is to make something else arrive, meaning to draw it close, to touch it to. Sue?
instead of higia, to arrive.
You think the root is naga?
That's what I think.
First of all, you're not in the microphone, so I know it's annoying. Everyone needs to have a lavalier.
I think it's not, well, I don't know, but there's higia, there's arriving, or laga'at. I don't know the difference between the roots, but that's to touch. And it seems like this would be a touch. It seems. Although I have a funny translation that says strike, and I don't know where they get strike from. We got them.
You know, you might be 100% right. I've always
like
heard higia. First of all, I don't know if those two roots are not connected themselves, right? But I've always heard it as the feel of higia, to make this thing arrive there, which I guess is the same thing as touching. Is it etymologically naga? I don't know, but that's interesting, to make a touch. And if it's to make a touch, it would mean to strike. It means to like bring it close. Diane?
I was just going to say, maybe the roots, even if they're different roots, are actually related, as you said.
Yeah.
Getting to something and touching it is like very similar.
Yeah. I've never thought, my brain has never thought whether lehagia is related to laga'at, but maybe it is. Yeah. Barry?
If the purpose of doing this is some visual recognition by the angel going through, if you just lightly touch it, it's not going to be visual. So some element of striking is involved.
Yeah, with some force. So whatever the Vihigat 10 means, we'll look at different translations in a second. Do it at the mashkof, which is the horizontal. Is that the lintel? I always forget. Yeah, and then
the lintel is the top.
Yeah, and then the two mezuzot in the Torah. A mezuzah does not mean something you bought at a Judaica store, right? It means the vertical posts that create the doorway, right? So strike it or touch it on the two mezuzot. Min hadam asher basaf, from the blood that is in the basin, and then. Not quite a non sequitur, but mid-verse, there's an entirely different instruction. Stay in all night. Okay? All right. Any comments? A lot of them on the verse, including alternate translations. We'll start with Rick, because I think his digital hand was up before your physical hands were up.
Okay. Hi.
Hey.
So I always like to point out that I learned from looking at stuff about Egypt that the doorways had the Ra, the symbol, the sun god with the little wings on it, on the door, not on the doorpost, on the lintel of temples, and it was a protector, like a horseshoe in the West. Good luck and everything, and doors were a portal to the other world, and all that kind of stuff, and the ark in the back was a portal to see God and all that. So it's interesting to me that we lost that custom of putting it on the lintel, but we used the doorpost. Oh, and on the doorpost they would have instructions. You would read things when on your way into the temple. They had instructions there. So in hieroglyphics or whatever it was. So to put blood on it. It's a symbol of life and death, and it was to scare away the Egyptians also from getting retribution on the Israelites, I think. It was a scary thing, the blood. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that.
And lintel is also on that wonderful list of the most Yiddish-sounding English words. Svelte, lintel, ladle, farfetched. Spatula. Far-fetched is the most Yiddish-sounding English word. So far-fetched. Okay, let's go down. Let's go counterclockwise. Larry, Norm, Stevie, and then Joanna.
So my comment started with the phrase asher basaf. So the blood is in the basin. But wait. How did it get to the basin? How did they know to put the blood in the basin? Because apparently God had told this to Moses. So then I'm thinking, hold on a second. When is this taking place? No, this is not taking place on the 10th. This is taking place on the 14th. And we aren't told that. And then I'm thinking, wait a second. That long 20 verses of God instructing Moses what to do ends up turning around to be 8 verses which doesn't repeat everything God said to do. And then I'm thinking back to Eliezer, Abraham's servant, and the whole story, which he repeats. He says, here's what I'm going to do. And then he does exactly what he says he's going to do, almost word for word, every detail. And then he goes and he tells the family, this is what I was going to do, and this is what I did. Three times. And this happens, you can tell me how many times in the Torah, but multiple times in the Torah. And then the sages tell us, look at the differences, the slight variations in the way it's told. We make a whole lot of, but in this case, it's not slight. Yeah. In this case, what Moses is telling the people is, I won't say very different, but incomplete and slightly different. And the only comment I make is the comment I usually make, which is there's various versions of the story, and the sages and the editors were trying to piece it together.
Yeah.
But
there's no instruction to, after you kill it, pour the blood into the basin. It's just an assumption that the blood's in the basin.
Yeah.
And it's even the basin. It's not in a basin. It's as if there's a very specific utensil they're supposed to use. Right?
So there probably was some ritual that was being practiced. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
And we're not told it anywhere else.
Yeah. Diane?
He just told my thunder. That's what I was thinking. Is this
thunder stealer?
This feels like some sort of primitive rite. You paint your doorpost, you stay inside because it's protected if you stay inside.
Yeah.
And that this came from someplace.
Yeah. Norm?
I just wanted to comment that we have this sort of ambiguity between striking it and merely touching it. And even in English, the crime and tort of battery, we usually think of as being struck harshly with intent to harm, but in fact, a mere unwanted touching can be a battery.
Interesting.
And charged as such.
Let's just go around. Stevie, then Barry, then Joanna, and then I want to compare some translations. Joel, you too? Go ahead. We'll go clockwise, counterclockwise. Wittershims.
Well, Saf modernly means threshold. So I was wondering if there's any ancient version of that meant that the blood that was in the doorway instead of a basin.
The floor, the completing the square, lintel, mezuzot, and saf at the bottom.
No, you're not painting it on there. That's where the blood is. You're not carrying it from somewhere else. You're putting the blood in the doorway, and you're using it to paint.
Interesting. I don't know how we got from biblical saf, which, as Rashi is going to point out, more obviously means a vessel, to just being a threshold for one place to the next. Is that the only thing that saf means in modern Hebrew?
Yeah.
That's true. What? Yeah.
Yeah. Like the brink of something.
Al-saf, yeah. I wonder if that saf is related to lip. No, it's a different letter. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. Stevie and then Barry.
Oh, I was going to say mostly what Larry said, but also to point out that whereas before there was less of a focus on, what like details with the blood, here we have very little detail about how to eat it. Whereas before we had like several verses about how to eat it.
The only focus here in the instructions that Moses is giving to the elders to do to the people is 10th plague, not consumption of the korban. Very good. Barry?
So going back to 12:3, in God's description to Moshe, there's nothing about a basin. It's just take the blood and place it on the doorposts. But in here, Moshe is making it more detailed. And in fact, in 12:3, Rashi's looking ahead. He's explained if you look ahead in Vayikra, you'll see there's a basin. But in here, there's no basin involved. In 12:3, there's no basin.
In 12:7.
12:7, sorry.
Take the blood and place it on the mezuzot and the lintel.
And so Rashi's explanation below that is that if you look ahead, there's a basin.
Yeah. And there's no hyssop or oregano back then. Joanna.
So I like the Vihigatem. If the Shoresh is in fact Nun Gimel Ayin, it's a nice play off the introduction of the last plague. So if you go back to the beginning of chapter 11, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Od Nega Avi al Parod. So there's the nega, there's the plague, and the same shoresh is the remedy to save yourself from said plague.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, before we look at the Rashi, let's see if we get anything interesting out of comparing translations. I'm going to put Everett Fox's on the screen, and maybe now we can weigh in on how Everett Fox is reading this, the language of this verse. Okay. Then take a band of hyssop. See what his note on band is. Hyssop. The leaves are known for having a cooling effect, but some understand the Hebrew ezov as meaning marjoram. Is marjoram connected to oregano?
They're often in recipes together.
Huh.
It's very close.
Dip it in the blood. So far, it hasn't weighed in one another, which is in the basin. So he's reading Saf's basin, not threshold. Is it big enough on the screen? Can you see it? And touch the lintel. So touch the lintel, I think he's reading it as naga. Yeah, not lahagia, unless those two roots are basically the same. Touch the lintel and the two posts with some of the blood. We don't really have some of in the Hebrew. It's, I guess so, min hadam, from the blood, which is in the basin. Now he adds in a long hyphen because the teitzu in the Hebrew implies the you, and so he's trying to understand why the pronoun atem is there. It could have just been lo teitzu ish mipetach beito. So va'atem lo teitzu is a redundancy because you don't need the pronoun in the future tense. And you, hyphen, you are not to go out any man from the entrance to his house until break. What's his note of entrance? Yeah, opening. It means the word is petach, opening, but it means entrance. Okay. You got anything interesting, Larry?
Yeah.
Let's get you a microphone.
Alter has something, an interesting, different connection. I'll first read the translation. And you shall take a bundle of hyssop, and you shall dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and you shall touch the blood that is in the basin to the lintel and to the two doorposts. And as for you, none of you shall go out from the entrance of his house till morning.
That sounds very similar to Everett Fox.
It does, but here's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Is he's commenting on the Hebrew word Vihigatem, and he says, touch the blood to the lintel. This is precisely the same verb that's used in chapter 4, verse 25, for Tzipporah's placing or smearing the blood of circumcision at someone's feet. The usage is unusual enough to suggest the possibility of an explicit allusion here to the earlier episode, and the word there is v'tikach Tzipporah tzor v'tichot et ha'arla b'na v'taga l'raglav.
She touched it. You also have a lakach in that verse.
You do, right. Interesting. And then Aryeh Kaplan, you will then have to take a bunch of hyssop and dip it into the blood that will be placed in a basin. So
he's basically, alluding to the fact that no one's told them to do that yet, and she has to throw that into the English. Go
exactly.
ahead.
Touch the beam over the door and the two doorposts with some of the blood in the basin. Not a single one of you may go out the door of his house until morning. And the only thing that Aryeh Kaplan comments on, and he's given the volume, how much he put, because his comments are very brief, is hyssop. He has a whole explanation about hyssop here.
And?
I didn't actually read it. He says, Berenoro, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Malki Tzedek, on Shvi 8:1, Esov in Hebrew, cognate to the English. This is a form of wild eastern marjoram. Okay, it is a low plant, a little over a foot high, with blue blossoms. The Mishnah describes it as having woody lower parts with branches growing sideways, containing at least 3 buds on the top.
That's going to be relevant in a second when we get to Rashi. And by a second, I might mean next week. Go ahead.
Although it grew wild, it was also cultivated as a spice. It is an aromatic spice with deodorizing properties. According to Ibn Ezra, some authorities identify the ezov with the caper plant, or with wild thyme or oregano.
Speed Stick's going to come out with a new hyssop flavored, hyssop aroma deodorant.
Culinarily speaking, addressing Rashi, I note that he's in northern France, and marjoram is often called for in French haute cuisine, but in the Mediterranean areas, especially in Greece, Italy, and Egypt, oregano is a very common herb to be called for, but the two are very close. And if you look at something, they'll say, "Oh, if you have to substitute, that's the first substitute both ways."
And yet, I would never imagine putting oregano in my hummus, but I love za'atar in my hummus. Sue, microphone. And then I want to say a word about agudah, and then we'll start the Rashi.
The specificity of the whole smear it on there with the hyssop branch is it's part of the thing that kind of drives me a little nuts. Like put it in here and dip it that way and smear it on, and it's got to be hyssop, and it's got to mean. I'm sure they had things to smear. Yeah. It's like, well, okay, it's
any
remarkable.
Like any of our weird rituals.
Yes,
right?
It's a lot.
And it's presaging the specificity of Pesach that people either find burdensome or ennobling, right? I mean, think about it. There's no holiday where a higher percentage of self-identifying Jews spend more time focusing on specificity than Pesach, right? For better or for worse, that's just the case.
Yes. Well, and what if you couldn't find the hyssop? I mean, now everybody, is it like Sukkot? You're running around trying to find the right, the myrtle, the right things. Like if you didn't have hyssop, is it like up and down Pico, they're selling you hyssop? And, what if you didn't have hyssop?
Yeah. Stevie, Diane. Joanne, is your hand up again or still? Or it's not even up? Not even up. Okay.
Just to build off of that, I'll read a short bit from the Mechilta. Right. She'ein ella agudat Ezov, velo Ezov Yavan, velo Ezov Romi, velo Ezov Kachlit, velo Ezov Midabrit, velo Kol Ezov She'esh Alab.
So render that in simple English for those who are not yet getting the reference.
It means hyssop, but not Greek hyssop, not Roman hyssop, not Kochelite hyssop, not desert hyssop. And no hyssop which is qualified by an epithet.
Exactly. That seems obvious.
That's like the brook willow, right? In the Arba Minim, it's got to be brook willow and not any other willow.
Right, Arve Nachal, right.
The notion of painting with this leafy plant is bizarre, right? I mean, if you really wanted to put blood all over, you wouldn't use a leafy plant to do that. It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Your hand, maybe? Why the priests surely did that with their fingers.
Right.
I mean,
right. I don't know. It would be interesting to know if anyone has a sense of what a paintbrush was 3,000 years ago. I imagine it's bird feathers, right? Not more like something broomy.
Yeah, a broom plant, but not something with all these little leaves on it. It would be very odd.
Yeah. Your hand up, Seth?
Yeah. Hypothetical interpretation, but my imagination of what was happening was painting the lintels with the blood, but reading these translations with the word touch, like maybe you're putting like a hyssop print on the lintel. I don't know how much paint of blood is being applied here. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Not covering it, but just, yeah. Interesting. Joey.
I can almost imagine the angel of death, like looking and seeing, oh, this one is the Lebanese
Roman hyssop.
No good.
They're sentenced to death. the thing I was going to say about aguda, aside from being a modern ultra-Orthodox political movement, you have that word in the opening paragraph of the Amidah on Rosh Hashanah Achad, V'yesu chulam aguda achat, that all of us will become one aguda, that the notion, the fantasy or the hope of the Jewish people that we pray for as we celebrate the new year is that all the disparateness of the Jewish people become a single aguda, a gathering that you could hold in one hand, as it were. So it ends up being an evocative word. Okay, let's start the Rashi. We're on verse 22. Alon, you're still up if you want to start the Rashi.
Sure. And by the way, can I take the other side of the bet on the getting all of us to agree and be one people?
Yeah, you'll take the under.
Yeah, who's booking that? Because I'm in.
Unless we're all drinking Slivovich together, as your hat is inviting us to, in which case I think there's a good chance. Okay.
All right. Ezuv, which means Ezov, we've already established that means hyssop. Amin yerek sheyesh lo givolin, from a type of vegetable that has no idea what a givol is.
Okay. Before we translate givol, it's interesting that what Rashi doesn't tell us is what he thinks hyssop is. He does not specify it. He leaves it in, it's a type of plant that has gibol. And what a gibol is, I'll bring up the Jastro, is something that could be many different things, even though one of the things that Jastro says it could be is hyssop. Okay, so this is Jastro on givol. It's related to geva and gavia. What's a gavia? Is a goblet. So it's a calyx. Now that only helps if you know what a calyx is. But luckily Google knows what a calyx is. This is a calyx. It's the top bulb, essentially, of a plant that kind of looks like a goblet, right? And that has the seeds at the top of it. Okay, so that's what a calyx is, right? And calyx, the only other time I've ever seen the word calyx is in the translation of the Haftarah, that's both Chanukah and Parshat Bechukotai, describing the cups of the menorah, which were meant to look like a plant. And and I forgot what the Hebrew is there. It's not gibol, I don't think, but it's translated at least by JPS and Archumash as a calyx. This thing holding up the place where the lamp goes. 1 second, Barry. So Rashi says that whatever plant this is, it's a type of plant that has gibolin. And there's a super commentary. Rashi says, gibol hu hakaneh emsa'i. It's the middle stem, the middle reed, shehazera berosho, where the seed is at the top of it. So he doesn't tell us what plant it is. He tells us what category of plant it could be. Barry and then Joel?
So functionally speaking, it is a paintbrush. It absorbs the liquid, and it carries the liquid that you can paint onto the doorpost.
Yeah. Joel?
Well, I was asking whether Rashi was saying that this is a specific plant that he's describing it, and the question is why he doesn't use the French word if he has a specific plant in mind, or is he saying this is any plant that has a calyx? It's called
It's a very good question, because it seems to us that if Rashi wanted to make clear, going back to Sue's comment, that what was required here was a specific species, he would have told us what that species is in medieval French. So is he really saying that ezov is a generic term? Or is he thinking that ezov is a specific plant, but the only thing that he feels is important to tell us is what type of plant it is? I don't know. Can't interview him. I don't know. Oh, I said Bechukotai, right. Bahalodcha. Thank you, Rick. It's the Haftarah for Bahalodcha and Chanukah. Someone who's done 300 Haftorah plethores is the right person to correct that. In fact, I'm a little disappointed that Larry didn't. Okay. Let's just read one more Rashi. We can do it probably in under 60 seconds. Ilan Aguda. So he's commented on what ezov is, but he hasn't really given us the species name. And now he comments on the phrase of Agudat ezov.
Agudat ezov, Shosha, Kalachin, Kruin, Agudat. So three, I have no idea what Kalachin, Kruin means.
Okay, so I'm going to share Jastro again. A kelach is a tube, a stem, or a stalk. So he's saying that he's sort of being pre-halachic. He's saying, how many of something do you have to have for it to be called an aguda? How much is a bunch? How much is, right? What's the difference between a few and a couple, right? So a bunch is at least three. 3 klachim, 3 stems that have gibolim at the top, that have this calyx at the top. More than that, it's okay to have, but it's more than you need. Fewer than that, it ain't. Whatever 2 is, it ain't an aguda.
Does anyone know if klachim is modern Hebrew too? Like, do we still say that? Like, like
the
3
verb
sunflowers. Shalosh.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a modern noun. You would know better than I.
I don't know.
I also want to. You asked the question. Ilan kru'in means it's called. So 3 stems are kru'in, are considered an aguda. Has to be at least 3 for it to be an aguda. Last comment, Norm.
I just think it raises a couple of interesting questions. One is, do we need to dip all 3 in and schmear, dip, schmear, dip, schmear? Or,
schmear, dip, schmear.
Since we have a whole bunch, we have 3, maybe we use 1 for the lintel, 1 for the right, 1 for the left.
Great.
And
Rashi's going
to... It's not completely clear.
It's not completely clear. Rashi will weigh in on that. Doesn't mean that the way he weighs in on it is right, but he will weigh in on that next week. Okay. I mean, he did it a while ago, but we'll get to next week.
If Rashi had specified really clearly exactly what species it is, would people who run around trying to get the perfect esrog for Sukkos also be running around trying to get the perfect hyssop?
Yeah.
For
well, there's a connection even more intimate than you may even be aware of, because the other place, one of the other places where the notion of an aguda, of a binding together, is discussed is regarding the 4 species of the lulav. That is considered an aguda, a binding together of these 4 things.
And finally, instead of dipping only twice at a Seder, should we be dipping 3 times?
And then change the language of Manish Tana. Ad Khan, have a good week, everybody. See you next Wednesday.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.